Are you ready? So, what we have here is a threat from the Middle East. Parham Maghsoodloo. This guy. He looks much older than he is. He's only 17. And he's, well, one of many young talents from Iran at the moment. It was noticeable at the last Olympiad in Baku. They had a very young team with this guy and also Alireza Firouzja. So if you watched Magnus Carlsen streaming from the last lead chess titled arena, he mentioned Alireza many times, and yeah, he's a big fan of Alireza. And yeah, the Iranian national team, they had an experienced grandmaster on board one, but the rest of the guys were like, 14, 15, 16 years old. So a big rise in Iran, in the national team and in their talents. And yeah, this guy, I noticed before the Olympiad, and it's very funny. He studies chess a lot. I saw an interview where he claimed that sometimes he's even studying 20 hours a day, which doesn't leave a lot of sleep. And he doesn't seem to be playing very, very theoretically at times. With white, he's quite often just playing a King's Indian attack, sort of playing positionally. So, nonetheless, a very interesting player. Sometimes his games nonetheless blow up into tactical feasts. And yeah, I wanted to have a look at this game, which is from the Sharjah Masters in Dubai, the second edition of that tournament. And it seems like they're having 2 tournaments in a row in Dubai. They had the Dubai Open earlier this month, and yeah, now they're having this tournament. And Parham is doing fantastically. After 6 rounds, he's leading with 6 out of 6, and this is his 6th round game against Seturaman from India. He played very, very well in the Dubai Open. Was among the top players there. And, well, still is in this one. He was on 5 out of 5 before this round, so not too shabby. But I thought this game was interesting because it's in a line that I've often struggled with for ideas, and I think this was maybe not a slugfest, but it contained an interesting strategical idea. So this is maybe more interesting for more advanced players, but I hope everybody can learn something from this game. So Maghsoodloo had the white pieces, and he opened with knight f3. And oops, let's actually get the board up. Parham, need to get out of the way. Aha. So yeah, but yeah, at the Olympiad, I forgot to mention, he was always, he made the move, and then he would just walk back and forth in the hall, and he was always wearing this vest every single round. Maybe he has 2 of them, I don't know. I think he might have changed his shirts, but he always had a vest on. So it's like his calling card at the moment. So if you look him up online, you'll always find a picture where he's wearing a vest like this, at least in I think recent photos. Okay, so yeah, he opened with knight f3. Like I mentioned, he seems to be playing these King's Indian attack type of positions, often double fianchettoing. But this will transpose into an English opening. After c4, knight c6, he takes on d5, and now we have the Rubinstein variation. Knight c3, the knight goes back to c7, castles e5. So yeah, here the most common move is d3, but and this is of course like a dragon, probably accelerated dragon reversed with Maroczy bind. But Maghsoodloo goes for b3. Not the most common move, but it has been tested on a number of occasions, and it has an interesting idea. So bishop b2, castles, and one of the ideas is here after knight e1. This knight can sometimes emerge on d3. So white is quite often trying to put a lot of pieces to attack this c5 pawn. So as you can see, I can very quickly put 4 pieces here, and I open up the diagonal of the bishop. So it could be a problem on c5. And there's also another idea. So black, there are not a lot of tests in this position, and perhaps a move like bishop d7 or queen d7 is called for. But Saturaman went for bishop e6, which looks quite normal. But here Maghsoodloo unleashed his strategical idea, which is very anti-positional. In a way, you never want to give this bishop up, but this is actually known in positions of this type. I seem to recall some game by probably Petrosian. I could be wrong. But okay, white gives up this strong bishop, so of course he weakens his king position, but this is a tremendous weakness for black. And one would think that white would continue attacking it with knight d3, but he simply goes back to f3, figuring, okay, he's going to need some pieces on the king side to protect the king side. And also, black has to react. There's a threat on the e5 pawn, so f6, and now d3. Now this has two ideas. One is to allow this knight to move without being hit with e4, and also we have a square on d2 for the knight. So mostly to allow this knight to move is my opinion. Also to, yeah, the second idea of course is just to pin down this weakness. There's no c4 coming for black. This weakness is absolutely pinned down by the pawns. Bishop h3, okay, forced rook e1. And here black started to move his forces to the king side, but Maghsoodloo was undeterred. He simply lined up all his forces on the c5 weakness, knight a4. So it's a rook c1, knight a4, and these pieces are all going to line up against this. First he played rook to c4. This gives the queen opportunity to come behind the rook. Queen to d6. Now bishop a3, one more attacker. Rook d5 defending, and now queen c1. So now we have four attackers, but there are only 3 defenders. So this pawn is going to drop. Unfortunately for black, he hasn't managed to develop anything on the king side. And one of the ideas is of course that this knight has had constant pressure on the e5 pawn, so there was no break with f5. So what to do here? Saturaman went with bishop g4, which looks like it might cost white some time. You know, there's a threat on this bishop, doubling the pawns. But Maghsoodloo had, you know, a deep strategical idea here. He took on c5. This looks like it should be okay for black. I mean, he takes on c5. We have a mass exchange here. Takes on f3. Bishop takes c5 to undermine this pawn. Rook takes c5, and now queen takes d3. So what do we have here? We have equal material, 6 pawns each. Okay, this is attacked, but this is also attacked. So white to move. He plays king to g2. And this reminds me a lot. If you look at some of my pattern recognition videos, there's one pattern called Anand's King. And it reminds me a lot of that. Anand's King was on the h file, but it had a very nice pawn cover. Not unsimilar, very similar to this. So the king is very safe. Meanwhile, the black king is not as safe. And we also have a heavy piece endgame. And the king being this safe means that we can use the heavy pieces to poke around at will, try to win some pawns. So very similar. I encourage you to have a look at that pattern and you know, think about it and compare to this game. Rook takes c5, queen takes c5. Now that the king has covered this is attacked. Queen a6, covering and attacking. The queen drops back. Okay, it was nicely posted, but here we're covering the second rank, and also we're getting ready to put the rook either on e3 or e4 and swing it over to the c file, attacking the weakness. So very clean play. Rook d8, rook to e3. Here, okay, he wants to make some luft, but we see that there are some weaknesses here on the light squares that are pretty hard to deal with. So maybe I don't really have an alternative, but it feels like this gave white something extra. After h4, black can't really do anything. Queen b7. So white is simply improving his position slowly but surely. Now the heavy pieces on the c file lining up against the weakness. Rook to d6, rook to c5. So here, okay, white doesn't need to rush. You know, I think Turetsky and some Russians always say, you know, in positions like these, don't rush. And he shows good technique here. A4, king h8, and now a little bit of back and forth. Rook c4, just making black make a decision. A6, probably a6 is a slight concession because it can become a weakness on a6. Rook c5, queen b7, and now he went for h5, pinning down the queen, the king side completely, and also getting this square for the queen in case we infiltrate at some stage. This could be important. Queen b6. So now a little bit of not rushing by white. Okay, b4, king h8, and now we see a little bit of back and forth. Queen c4, queen check, queen comes to c3, and queen c4. Kind of a triangulation. King goes to h8, and now queen to f7. And here comes the critical mistake. I have a feeling that Maghsoodloo had studied such a position type, and you know, came to the conclusion that it was a type of position where he can just press forever. Now you can't take here. There's going to be a check on f8, taking the rook. That's why he was triangulating before he played queen f7. But I think black has to play rook to d8 here, blocking the 8th rank, and it turns out white has nothing better than to come back because of this, and he would have to demonstrate something. And I've had, you know, a good look at this position. White has ideas like rook to a5 here, attacking this, but then comes rook d2, and there's an attack here, so don't have time to take. So I think there are two ways for white to go forward here. One is to play queen e4 and try to play f4 at some stage, and the other is to maneuver the king f1, and black can't really do anything. You notice that both of the pieces are tied down to this, so the rook certainly can't move, only the queen can move really. And at some point we can now play rook a5, and the thing is, there's no rook d2 now and no attack on f2. And as far as I've studied it, it seems to lead to an endgame where white has the 8 pawn and a pretty good king, and I think it should be winning. But it's a little bit outside of the scope of this video. We don't want to make it too long. So after queen f7, Setouraman cracked under the pressure. He played queen to h7 and overlooked the tactical point here. So white to play and finish the game. Well, more or less finish it. There's still some work to be done, but this is where the game was decided. Maghsoodloo played queen to g6, Czechoslovakia, king back to the back rank, and now rook takes e5. Loose pieces drop off, and that's what's happening to the rook on d6. Of course, there's no time for this because of the mate. So black takes, but now takes the rook, also covering this. And black doesn't have any moves. This is going to drop soon, especially since after king to h7, taking allows queen to e4 check, which simplifies into a pawn ending, which is completely winning. And after these unnecessary moves, Setouraman resigned. This is fairly easy for white. Just play f4, bring the king. We bring the king first even, doesn't really matter. And there's nothing to be done. White will win easily. So Setouraman resigned. So yeah, this was my brief introduction. I'm not sure you've heard of Parham Maghsoodloo before. A very talented 70-year-old Iranian with a rating of 2615, which is definitely going up. I mean, he's on 6 out of 6, which is super impressive. And you know, I noticed some impressive games by him in the past from World Junior Championships and such tournaments. So definitely someone to look out for. And I thank you for your attention. See you in the next video. Bye bye.